Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast where I bring you the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Excited to welcome my guest today, Tyrel Kirkham, and unpack his career journey in professional sports marketing. He is currently the VP of brand marketing for the Detroit Pistons and previous tenure with the LA Rams, Brooklyn Nets, and my New York Mets. Today we'll dig into his story and touch on what effective leadership means, true brand marketing, and cultural integration into pro sports. So let's do it. Tyrel, my man, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, man. Adam, it's an honor. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you doing things the right way and getting that tech crew in there to get you up and running. So big shout out to the is that the Pistons crew over there getting us up and running?
Best in the business.
The best IT tech team in the business here. So let's jump in. You know, the show is really about unpacking career journeys and trying to share wisdom and all those key learnings to everybody. So you're a fellow SUNY guy. I went to SUNY Buffalo. Talk about that transition, man. Like, you know, senior year of college, and we're hitting the Wayback Machine here, right? Like, did you always know you wanted to go into professional sports? What was that like, man?
I mean, shout out to SUNY. I went to SUNY Cortland, 4 great years of education. I knew I wanted to work in sports. I knew I had a love for business, and you know, my major really sport management at the time in high school was hopefully to accomplish those two in tandem. So majored in sport management, but still didn't know exactly what that meant or really what the world entailed in sports and how I can insert myself in an environment. So ended up really focusing on, you know, the sponsorship side, understanding the marketing piece. But, you know, you got to break through the walls and hopefully be afforded the opportunity to showcase those skill sets, but also to learn. And, you know, internship opportunity came along for our New York Mets. And growing up a lifelong fan, and again, the aforementioned love for both sports and business, was one of those opportunities that I couldn't pass up.
So let's talk about that first day, and let's hit the rewind button for a second. Were you at was it Shea Stadium or was it Citi Field yet?
So I was with Shea at Shea. 2004 was my internship, so had a few years at Shea to live those memories, and then we got the upgrade to Citi Field.
Let's talk about your fondest memory. I mean, I'm not. It's your show, man. I mean, I have some great. I interned with the Buffalo Sabres when I was in college up in Buffalo. I have some great stories, which I'll share another time. But there's some great. I mean, when you intern for a professional sports team, you get access. You get access to things. You see things. You're at the games. Tell us one of those kind of early lessons on from those first days interning for the Mets.
I mean, 2004. Outside of being, I consider myself a world-class stapler, photocopier, shredder.
Best in class.
All things that
my
I did
shredding
during
skills
my first...
are on point.
Listen, I will tell you this. One of my first assignments as a New York Mets intern, I was working in the baseball operations department, and they had an archive of old catcher signals from throughout the minor leagues and major leagues. And a buddy of mine who is still one of my closest friends today, we interned together and did sort of the greatest things in the world and also just some of those mundane tasks, but all of which we welcome with open arms. We had to shred all of the catcher signals from all divisions, from, you know, single A up to the majors, and that was our job for like 2 weeks straight.
Yeah, did you looked at them when you were going through them? I'm sure you were like checking them out, and or were they kind of mundane at that point?
Sure did. No, no, no. It was kind of hard to stay on task without, just being
Of
inquisitive.
course.
You want to know, okay, this is what's going on. Is it changing drastically? But let me just continue with my business and not meddle too
But
much.
it's funny. I mean, some great intern stories from the mundane, right? I was really good at multitasking on the copier, like trying to figure out the algorithm to make sure it collated, stapled, to make my job as easy as possible. But one of the things I learned from internships is things I didn't like. So when I went out into the real world, it's like, all right, I didn't like some of the finance stuff. I didn't like certain things there. What was something that you didn't like from your internship days at the Mets that when you transitioned into, on the payroll for the Mets that you didn't want to be doing?
Yeah, the one thing that I tried to do was just soak up the opportunity. So I spent my summer just knocking on doors and cubicles to see who I can get some time with in hopes that they would shed some light on what they do and I can sort of glean the things that I love and the things that maybe aren't suited for my skill set. Maybe that's not the path that I wanted to go down. And had the chance range from venue services to marketing to operations to finance. Everyone afforded me the opportunity to pick their brain. Things like
That's a great
finance,
takeaway.
things like operations, just didn't feel like they were best suited for my creativity per se. So it was a great opportunity, and those people love their jobs. And what I would soon come to find out is even when you're in those marketing roles, finance is pivotal to your success.
You got to
Obviously,
learn it.
building operations where you want to do things on the field, just the nature of baseball with the grass, and you want to bring kids out on the warning track for an appearance. Like somebody has to weigh in there and tell you nay, or in certain instances you may get the green light. So it was really beneficial for me to sit down with those people and learn what I love, learn the things that I should probably steer clear of.
What are your thoughts? I mean, a little bit of a side note here. I see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and elsewhere about, don't work for free. Internships are worthless and everything. What are your thoughts on free internships? I know when I worked for the Sabres, I didn't get paid. Did you get paid as a Mets intern?
I did not.
And I mean, is it a different
I
age and
got some
time?
college
Right? I
credits.
mean, is it a different?
Got some college credits.
But what would you say now to kids out there if they have an amazing opportunity to intern somewhere and it's not paid?
You got to hustle hard, and whatever opportunity comes your way, you welcome it with open arms. If you have options and there's an opportunity to get paid, by all means do so. But just to put things in perspective, summer of '04, I interned for the New York Mets, and my grandparents owned an outdoor produce company for 40 years. We wholesaled produce throughout Long Island and New York City. And I used to go home after working 40, 50, 60 hours with the Mets, and my grandfather would still put me to work. And, that wasn't a full paycheck by any
No.
means, but it was just the hustle that was needed. And having that balance of just grinding while I can, knowing that, in the back nine, I'd be able to hopefully celebrate. You had to put the work in on the early part of your career for
So,
sure.
so what's changed? I mean, like now we're gonna literally sound like those two grumpy old men in the Muppets, right? But why do you think kids these days are like opposed to the hustle, man? Like I feel like it's so different. I feel like back in our day, Tyrell, like we would bust our ass, we would work for free, and look where it's gotten us today. I mean, what's changed? What's your take on that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not going to lump everybody together. I've had
No.
some interns as of late that their ambition, their hustle is second to none, and it's nice to see that you really want to see the world better off than you left it. And I see that there's kids with drive that are coming in that are inquisitive, that want to be their best version of themselves. But I also think it's a different game that we're in, and for us. I used to get the story of there's a million other people lined up to take your job. Now there's more options when you think about
Right.
how the world has evolved. It's not just the four major sports. It's fantasy. It's the
MMA.
wagering
Yeah.
environment, like betting. Like there's just so many different avenues. So there's a mindset of I can be particular and wait for the right opportunity. If you don't want to pay me, I'm not going to come here and work for you for free. And it's whether you're monetizing off of social media. A kid just told me today, what he makes off of his YouTube page, and he's 16 years old. They're
Unbelievable.
far more savvy than I was. Put it that way.
Oh yeah, that's a real grind. So merchandising, like correct me if I'm wrong, right? It was ticket sales into merch, right?
Yeah, ticketing was the way in, and sometimes ticketing is frowned upon, but for me, it was the perfect first step into the sales environment and just the sports environment. I used to sit down. It's like sports talk radio, like to listen to fans. Sometimes they vented with some of the Mets teams that I worked for. I was there in '06, and a lot of great memories. They would come in and give me sort of some of the answers to the tests, and I'd share that with other verticals within the organization. But ticketing, don't frown upon ticketing. Sales is a valuable tool in every facet of life.
You had your ear to the ground of the fans, and you were able to, that's true old school social listening right there.
Social listening, not to mention I may or may not have faxed orders versus, digitally scanning them. So it just shows you what the time frame we're dealing with. But yeah, no, to be able to get that real insight was extremely valuable for me as I sort of moved into other roles, marketing and merchandising. I already had the pulse of the people. I knew what they wanted. They told me what color uniforms they'd like to see on field. They told me what promotions we needed to give away. Like, those are the valuable insights that you might miss if you're, immediately in marketing and you don't get a chance to engage with the fan base on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. So you had a pretty long tenure with the Mets. Brooklyn Nets came knocking, or did you go knocking on that door?
No, and this is a theme throughout my career. Every opportunity I've been afforded has been a phone call from someone else who was pitched the job and felt that I was better suited for the role.
So this has happened multiple times, and we'll jump to
every step in my career, minus this Pistons, which I will get to, is a connection to a former colleague. My time from going to the Rams, my time going to the Nets, was somebody, in this case, turned down the job and just says, I'm not built for this. You have more of a brand focus and mindset, and I think you'd be better for it. And I was introduced to the CMO in Brooklyn, Elisa Badia, who's still a mentor of mine today. And her and I connected, and the rest is history.
So you transitioned from venue services into merchandising. Was that part of the deal? You wanted to get into merch? Like, is it something that was a passion of yours? Was it the fashion apparel side of it, the marketing side of it? What about merchandising that really appealed to you personally, but also your business sense?
Yeah, so just to take a step back, when I got out of ticketing with the New York Mets and had the opportunity with someone who I rubbed shoulders with during my internship, as sort of that inquisitive nature, he ended up hiring me for a merchandising coordinator role, which simply I was responsible for overseeing all the game used memorabilia. So I'd go into the locker room at the end of a game after being there at 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock, wait for the guys to finish their interviews. And then as they got undressed, as dirt, we needed to grab it off the field, outfield wall panels, we'd take that, catalog it, sell it, market it. And that was my version of a lemonade stand, and the perfect transition from the sales role, because I was getting a little bit of marketing, I had some sales in there, and got a chance to work with a lot of departments throughout the organization.
How did they collect the on-field dirt for that? Is it literally like a little spoon in there and just putting it in little jars?
It's shoveled into a larger container, and there's an MLB authenticator that watches it. You physically have to take it off the mound or take it from home plate. So when there were major moments like Johan Santana,
no-hitter,
the perfect game, like the no-hitter. Sorry, not perfect game, no-hitter.
It wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect. It wasn't
you had
perfect.
A walk in there, right?
Yeah, the dirt off that mound is different than the one from the previous homestand. Or when Mariano Rivera, as a Yankee, came in and got his 300th save, we took that pitching rubber and the dirt from that mound. So there's a lot of things in the course of a game that you could grab: baseballs, bases, you name it. We collected it.
I mean, you've had to have your fair share of access to something. What's your most prized baseball memorabilia that you have?
It's probably from my favorite Met of all time, David Wright, just an autographed helmet. He's someone that I've developed a relationship with over time, someone whose career started right around the same time. He was at Norfolk when I was an intern, and
AAA.
I definitely connected with him immediately. His hustle, his approach, his personality. I always appreciated how he welcomed and valued every member of the Mets organization. And he's someone that, as I developed a relationship over time, that's like, this is what an athlete should be.
Let's pause on that for a second there, because it brought up by the way, I got my Pete Alonso autograph ball right there. It is right there.
Yes.
Authenticated. But it's interesting too, and just a little quick note, I think I told you the story too. When I interned for the Buffalo Sabres, it was so interesting to watch how certain players interacted with the maintenance, the facility staff, right? The people, like how they treated them, that they weren't below them. And that says so much, man. So Brooklyn Nets, man, right? You 2002. I mean, I think that's been the biggest thing to happen to sports in New York in a long time. The Nets coming to Brooklyn, and they've been fantastic. what was that, dude? Those early days, Barclays Center, state of the art, beautiful. I remember that's when Andrew Schwartz, who connected us, went over there. That's when I connected. We actually pitched business to do graphics inside the what do they call it? The Oculus, right? The Oracle.
The Oculus.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that had to be cool, man. I mean, basketball in Brooklyn. Move over, Jersey.
Remarkable. Definitely one of those moments. I always look back to September 28th, 2012, when Jay-Z came out on stage, unveiled the Nets jersey. I was like, wow, like this is special. And, for me, growing up a Knicks fan, not really ever, not saying paying attention to New Jersey Nets. Obviously, they had some really good runs, but I was a Knicks guy through and through. So even when the opportunity presented to myself, it was very difficult to fathom. Like, are you going to go
like
work
a traitor?
there? And then I started.
Did you feel like it?
Definitely. My friends were questioning me. My family was questioning me. I was like one of those guys. I'm talking Hubert Davis, Tony Campbell. Like, I'm talking not just the Patrick Ewings and John Starks of the world.
Oakley.
I'm talking the Oakleys of the world. My life, the ebbs and flows of my life came from Knicks and wins losses. Knicks wins and losses.
Knicks losses. Or Knicks playoff disappointments.
Yeah. So, a lot of epic years,
Damn
though.
Houston Rockets.
Epic years, but the Brooklyn piece, the more I heard, wow, Jay-Z's involved with the organization, the black and white color palette. I think they just got Darren Williams and Joe Johnson, already had Brooke Lopez, and really starting to build a formidable roster. Obviously, Brooklyn being a brand within itself, and me being a brand guy and wanting to go and really showcase my talents. Like, it was a no-brainer, but it was difficult. I was with the Mets for 8 years. That place will always feel like home. I've got a lot of family that still exists there, and Brooklyn was just the next chapter in my life that I needed to tackle.
I'd love to get you. I think from an outsider outsider kind of point of view, the way they've handled building that brand aesthetically, the brand, the community, looping it all in, the merch, they're changing up the jerseys, they're doing a lot of really cool things there. Give us your inside basketball kind of take from a sports fan perspective and from a basketball merchandising fan engagement perspective of this case study of the Brooklyn Nets merchandising and brand.
Yeah, it starts with the campaign in 2012, Hello Brooklyn. And I asked, because it was sort of in development as I arrived. I was like, what's the premise? Like, well, we're just coming here. We're not going to barge our way in. We want to be welcoming. We want to introduce ourselves. And as the community welcomes us, our brand voice, our brand position becomes more comfortable. But we just can't come in here feeling like we're the new kid in town that's got all the answers. No, we're going to lean into our community and allow them to help dictate what the Nets brand is all about.
How'd they do that?
And that was focus groups. That was really being out in the community. Even before the jersey was still happening, we had a van that was driving around. It had a hoop on it. And Modell's was the sponsor, and we literally were just activating in market and showing people that we were there to show love. And my old CMO and mentor Brett Yormark, his quote is, "If they like you, they will buy you. So don't be transactional out the gate. Like, let's do some feel good, and over time, like, we can then go ask for their wallets."
And I remember. Yeah, like so you have to think about New York, right? New York was a Knicks town. It was the only game in town, right? It was the Knicks, and they got this other team coming in there, and I felt it because I was like a Knicks fan, but kind of fair weather. But Brooklyn was something to believe in. I'm Brooklyn born and raised, right? Like, aren't you from Brooklyn too?
I grew up on Long Island, actually. Lived in Queens and Brooklyn for my adult life, but Brentwood, Long Island, Brentwood all day long.
Same island, man. But like for us, it was like, thank God. Like it was. It's funny. I remember talking to my dad about it. He was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. The Dodgers left, and my dad's like, well, I can't be a Yankees fan right now. What the hell am I going to do? And then the Mets come into town, and that's how my dad became a Mets fan. That's why I'm a Mets fan. And I felt like this was a moment in Brooklyn. This was a generational thing. This was something that Brooklyn needed, right in the heart of downtown, right? It was where they put it, right in the middle of everything, and they've done a great job. But talk to us a little bit about the jerseys, the merch. They have so many variations these days.
Yeah, no, we coined the phrase effortlessly cool. Like, that was the intent. So you saw, probably 80% of the product that hit the marketplace as we built the brand said Brooklyn. Sometimes it didn't even say Nets on it. You just saw black and white Brooklyn, and it was synonymous with the Nets. And that was very intentional part of our process because, brand Brooklyn was always intended to be the insurance policy. And then as the team developed, you could continue to build the equity around Nets. So it was this perfect dichotomy of the two different pieces that were used in unison to really build a brand and be relevant. Because some of those Nets teams weren't the greatest on court, but you were distracted because you walked into the 40-40 club, you were downstairs in all the clubs and bars, and then
It was nice. It's a nice arena, man.
shoot.
It's all good. Right, like that arena is really nice.
Yeah, no.
The acoustics for concerts maybe a little bit off. When the Islanders played there, the scoreboard a little off center, but for everything, I mean, it was great. I mean, it's a nice place, good food options, easy access from all the subways and everything. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, well designed, perfect location, and again, the local restaurateurs that were infused to be able to go get a slice of Junior's cheesecake or Calexico or wherever else you love to eat inside the building. You had access, and it really felt like you were bringing the community inside of a venue.
So the next phone call comes. Hey, I got this guy that'll be perfect for the LA Rams. Tell us about that thought process, man. East Coast guy, packing it up and taking his talents out west. What kind of decision was that? Was there not the opportunity to move up into a place you wanted to be in Brooklyn, or was this too good with the Rams?
No, it's great. And both times, even going back to the Mets, I was the youngest director in the organization as I left, with a very high trajectory. Same thing with the Nets at the time. Life was great. I actually met my wife, who was overseeing entertainment for the team at the time, over the dancers and head choreographer, and we had just got engaged. So I was content with chilling in Brooklyn for
Things
a
were good.
long
This is home,
time.
right?
The team was on the up and up. The brand had never been stronger. And a buddy of mine from the Golden State Warriors, a really good friend, he was approached by the Rams, and they were looking for someone who can create sort of culture and a cool factor along with building the brand in the process. And the lifestyle piece was extremely important, knowing that they just moved from St. Louis to LA, and it's a very competitive marketplace out there, and they wanted to find the right person who really understands sports licensing landscape and just again, create the cool factor for the Rams organization. He calls me, he goes, "Hey, the guy from the Rams just called me, really nice guy, seems like a great opportunity." He asked, I said, "I know a guy in Brooklyn, but there's no chance in hell that he'd ever leave and move across country." He called me and I said, I'd move across country for the right opportunity, because, after the Mets role, my resume wasn't up to date when I got that opportunity from my colleague to go and interview for the Nets. And I said I'd never do myself that disservice ever again of not being ready and at least hearing people out. Even if I decided to stay at the Mets, I just needed to listen. Sometimes it could validate my roles, responsibilities, my salary. Just listen to people. It doesn't hurt. So this time I was ready, and I said, let's have a conversation.
There's a sound clip there, people. Timestamp, mark it. That's a clip right there. I want everyone to pause on that for a second, because you hit a really key important lesson there, and I tell this to folks. I'm a recruiter. It's what I do. We reach out to people, and a lot of people just kind of brush us off aside. But if there's a little spark of interest, something that caught your attention to open that email, take that phone call, because listen to what Tyrel just said there. It could be the next best thing that you never even thought about, which we'll talk about in a second here, or it could literally justify what you're doing now and why you're happy what you're doing, because you're hearing about another opportunity. You're like, hey, what I'm doing right now is great. I don't need to move. So I want everyone to kind of pause on that for a little bit. So this opportunity with the Rams comes across, and you're thinking about, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And did you make the decision once you got to a point in your head, Tyrel, where like, this is good, this is something I want? How'd you approach your fiance, or were you married at that point?
I was not
All right,
married.
so how'd that conversation go, man?
So, I keep her in the loop. And,
Of course.
I just dropped the bomb one day. I was like, hey, how'd you like to move to LA? And, on a personal note, I lost my dad when I was 17 in high school, lost my mom when I was 34. So that was pretty fresh. And, they always challenged me to be ambitious and to push boundaries. And I'm a family man first and foremost. So I felt like I owed it to them to hear out the opportunity and to try something new. I'd been in the New York market. I'd crushed it at two teams that were powerhouses in the market. And I said, this is an opportunity for me to go and flourish. I don't have a family yet. I'm not married. I've got a fiance. If she's down for it, let's take the journey across country. And here we are, and there we were in L.A. And it was a great move. Very difficult to leave Brooklyn because she had ties there too. She was still working for the organization, as was I. So to say goodbye to the Nets was really difficult. I shed a lot of real tears. It was emotional for sure.
That's a tough one. So let's really talk about it. The opportunity to build, integrate, merchandising, lifestyle, community. Let's unpack that a little bit, because this is your bread and butter. This is your specialty. This isn't just throwing a Rams logo on a T-shirt, but it's really about the thoughtfulness of it, what it means to the fans, who are the fans. But let's break it down for people. Let's really unpack this a little bit, like the true art and science of sports merchandising.
Yeah, and I'll use examples from different stops along the way.
Bring it all together.
We touched on the Nets, but for me, there's this intersection of culture and sports. When you think about a player arrival gallery in the NFL or NBA, like, it's what they're wearing, it's the music they're listening to, it's the art galleries that they're visiting, it's the food that they're posting on their Instagram. I want to be in the middle of all those conversations, typically knowing that's where our fans probably are as well. They emulate what they see our players do. And it's been important for me to infuse culture in every step of the way. If you just want me to market a sports team, I'm probably not the right person for you. And I've carved out my niche. When you think about Biggie Smalls and me being a part of that and playing a very integral role in the ideation and execution of Biggie Smalls on a uniform and working with the estate, working directly with Miss Wallace and Wayne Barrow and Elliott and Mark Pitts, all guys who have been affiliated with Biggie's estate, his children. Like, I wanted to do that right. Kick gloves and show Brooklyn some love. Where Brooklyn at? Like, that was real. I wanted to live up to the legacy that Biggie had built. And what better way to do that than to recognize him with a uniform on court?
That was incredible.
Next level.
That was I remember that. What's more iconic than Biggie in Brooklyn? Brooklyn, Biggie,
it's they're synonymous with one another. It's crazy.
I know you got one of those jerseys at home.
Oh
right?
yeah, several. That's a project that I will when I'm sitting in a nursing home somewhere and people want to start to take a trip down memory lane. I will
tell me the story of the Biggie jersey, Grandpa T. Right, but the key lesson there, so you're finding, but all right, so LA, right? Like, what's the icon? What's the vibe that you're tying into the merch? This is a completely different. This ain't Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, it was extremely important that we lean in, right? Every environment you go to, it's not intended to be rinse and repeat, cookie cutter. Like, exactly. We got to come in, survey the landscape, and find unique ways to connect with culture, connect with the city, but meaningful, not just checking a box because, hey,
not surface level.
Somebody's creating a really dope product that is going to be available for all 30 teams or 32 teams in the NFL. Like, no, go give me the one-on-one so that Angelinos, when they see what the Rams are rolling out, what we're pushing out, like, they can be proud of it, and it's connecting directly to them.
And you had another challenge there too, because you also had St. Louis fans that were either going to follow the team or they're disgruntled and they're finding a new fan base there too. What were some of the challenges of being mindful to the existing fan base from a merchandising perspective?
Yeah, I think that's where you have to look at the assets that you're afforded. So in that case, especially in the beginning where SoFi wasn't open yet and we were playing at the Coliseum, it's like, okay, well, how much brand Rams stuff are you going to lean into? How much brand Los Angeles are you going to lean into? So you can be mindful of the entire pie. And the segmentation is, you can't be everything to everyone, but in sports licensing space, there is a mixture of licensees that afford you the opportunity to say, hey, my older generation, they might like polos and quarter zips, but I can go work with a streetwear brand like Born and Raised to come up with a killer collaboration that we know we're going to be really appealing to the next gen of fans and younger generation. So it's definitely a balancing act, but I've been doing it a long time and have a really good sense of how to maximize each of those opportunities.
Are you a football guy?
I am. I'm a basketball guy through and through, as you can tell, with 2 stints in the NBA. But I love the NFL. I'm a Rams fan. I actually grew up a childhood Buffalo Bills fan.
Yep.
So I got an AFC team and an NFC team.
Oh man, I can tell you some funny stories about Ralph Wilson Stadium. I went to school up in Buffalo, but we digress here. Well, I mean, at this stage of your career, right? I mean, it's through August of last year of 2020. What was that at this point in your career? You know, you're pretty high up, pretty accomplished there. Was there something about moving over to LA, something about the new group of folks that you were working with that maybe it was a misstep, maybe it was an assumption, maybe it was an overcalculation that you had to course correct on?
No, I'd still be there today. I will say the group of people that I work with at the Rams were some of the smartest individuals I've ever met. The COO there, Kevin Demoff, my former boss, and the guy, Jamie Regal, who hired me, who went to go work for Formula E. You know, they were next level. They were trying to push the boundaries, obviously, with this state-of-the-art SoFi Stadium that Mr. Kroenke built. You know, they were embracing the next chapter. So I was excited to get in on the ground floor of the change and be a part of it. And, you know, having worked at Shea, but experienced Citi Field, which of its kind. Say what you want about Yankee Stadium. A lot of people will give credit that Citi Field is a better
fan
venue.
Experience.
Yeah, from a fan experience perspective. Then Barclays Center and the newness of that. Obviously, that you can't beat the nostalgia of MSG, but if you're talking about a new venue in the market and you want to go polar opposite but still be super compelling, like Barclays Center is.
It could hold its own against MSG in many ways. I mean, listen, there's only one MSG, and I still say it's the best place on earth to see an indoor concert.
It's a remarkable place. You walk through those halls. I've been there hundreds of times, and each time you get that same chill. So I know exactly that feeling that you're alluding to, and you know, then going to LA and being a part of SoFi, being part of the planning committee and helping to build out some of the retail environments. I was pumped. And my wife, I don't do things for the short term. I was with the Mets for 8 years. I was with the Brooklyn Nets for 6. I had every intent to be with the Rams for at least 5, if not more, because palm trees and sunshine are just the added bonus. Traffic, not so much, but the other elements of LA, it's hard.
So
to
what happened, man?
How
did Detroit come calling?
So this business is all about relationships. And a former colleague of mine who, in the January of 2020, right before things hit the fan in the world, we were at the Rock Nation brunch in Los Angeles. He invited me. He was working for Rock Nation at the time, but we previously spent all of our time working at the Nets together. He's like, I got this opportunity to go and become the chief business officer for the Detroit Pistons, and it's going to be a while before I hear back. It's a long, tedious interview process, but if I get the gig, you're going to be my first call. And I said, his name's Mike Zavotsky. I said, Z, appreciate you, love you, and wish you the best of luck. However, if you get that gig, I'm good. Like, I just moved here. There's no way I'm convincing my wife to move across country for the second time in 2 years. No chance in hell.
Happy wife, happy life.
Not good for the marriage at all. But, you know, he ended up getting the gig, and he called me. I was his first call, and you know, I had always been the merch guy and enjoyed being the merch guy, but never ever isolated myself to being in a box of just being about sports licensing and merchandising. I always thought about the brand. That Biggie piece came with community activations. It came with corporate sponsorship opportunities. So I was really impacting the entire organization. However, you know, I would always run into challenges of like, you got to go to someone else to get the budget approved if you want to bring this initiative to life. And the dream that he sold me on was like, you have the opportunity to come over to Detroit and lead brand and marketing strategy and have several verticals that report into you. And you can use the power of all those respective brand components to create really immersive and powerful stories. And that was really, really compelling at the time, and was a strong reason why I ended up making the move to have a greater role and responsibility. Oh, yet again, another difficult conversation. But I will tell you, my wife, on our wedding, which we ended up getting married while I was working at the Rams, she wore a shirt on our wedding rehearsal. No, the day after the wedding, it said "Ride or Die," and that's just a true testament to who she is. She's going to ride for me to the bitter end, and that's what I appreciate about her. And obviously, make whatever sacrifice she needs in her world. And that's what makes us the perfect pair. But
I love it. I love it. And it's about that partner. It's having that partner in your life who supports you, ride or die, and I love it. Let's talk about the Shop 313 initiative. Tell us the roots of it and a little bit about how it came to life and what it means to you.
Yeah, so the Pistons, we've really leaned in. I used to visit the city as a kid, have family here, but coming here and just seeing the sense of community, the pride, it's a beautiful city. I know there's some false narratives out there in certain circles, but you know what? It's our best secret, to be honest. And the Pistons last year, we really leaned into the brand and had this whole D-Up campaign where it was really about the continual rise of the city. Obviously, D-Up is also a basketball term, and the double entendre of hopefully D'ing up, winning games, and the continual rise, too, of our young core and young team that was developing on court. But Shop 313 was really a byproduct of all the things we did in the community. Working with small businesses during the middle of a pandemic, giving some of our, all of our front office staff some dollars to go just infuse money into local economies that were struggling during the pandemic, like Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, just to show them some love, but also putting them on a pedestal, bringing them out. We had 750 people last year max, but we used to push out on our social channels and showcase them in venue to say, look at this local business that's thriving.
Integration.
Yeah, they've been able to really innovate in the most troubling of times. And that led to Shop 313, which really centers with our partnership with Shopify and showing them love, and the businesses love and partnership with them to give them what they need to succeed. So e-commerce being such an integral part, working with them. How can we optimize their e-commerce experience to make sure they're hitting a larger audiences, maximizing on SEO and giving them actually our assets on game day. So we're going to select 82 games this year, home and away. We're going to select 82 businesses in which they will be featured and get all the assets that we would use to promote a game. They will be the presenting sponsor. So it's remarkable, really showing love to small businesses.
It's a give back integration, and it's building that bond between the community, real true integration. No, that's huge, man. Big Sean, big Pistons fan. How'd you get him on board to be the creative director of innovation? That's a good story, man.
Great story. And obviously, Big Sean, phenomenal artist, human being. I said in the beginning, I knew who Big Sean, the artist, was going into this dynamic. I never knew who Sean Anderson was, and I've getting to know him. He's an even better person. He's a phenomenal artist, but even a better person. And I think there had been ongoing conversations about how he can be involved. Obviously, Mike Zavosky having worked for Rock Nation, he's repped by Rock Nation, so that started the conversation. But then we started to tell him all the things that we had going on, and
not just a namesake. You want to really be involved, right? You didn't just want to slap his name on something and sell shit. Like, that's not what this story's about.
No, not at all. And honestly, he didn't want to just slap his name on things either. It was important and imperative, really, on his side. It's like, how are we leaning into the community? Are we giving youth of tomorrow a real opportunity to succeed in providing resources that are going to take them to the next level? What are we doing on the court? Like, what do our uniforms look like? What's our in-arena environment? And as our creative director of innovation, that's what we work with him on. And he is not absent. He's on calls with Nike. He's, really participating in all facets of our business. This coming weekend, he's got Don Weekend here in Detroit. We're going in it as a joint effort and really going to celebrate the city, celebrate the youth, and continue to provide access and resources to ensure we're doing our part in our community.
What's the biggest takeaway of that relationship for the Pistons?
I mean, his reach, and his love for the game and the city. Like, the fact that we can do this in tandem with him and get his instant feedback. His reach, the amount of, it's all about tapping into new audiences. When he talks about us, the amount of new followers and newly engaged, new and engaged audiences, like we welcome that and we realize the power, but we want to be there for every step. So we celebrate his album anniversaries. He obviously had some new music drop. we push that out. It's really a beautiful two-way street. And his mom oversees his foundation and his business team. They're all fully immersed.
Good stuff.
We're actually just wrapping up. He's hiring an intern. We did a huge thing with TikTok resumes.
Yeah.
Where people got a chance to submit their resumes via TikTok. No paper resume.
Great.
And
The world
we
is
were
changing, my
hiring
friend.
changing indeed. Yes,
The world is
indeed.
changing, my friend. So, hopefully you'll be here for a few years. I mean, is there something? Now, listen, we're not giving anything away here, but you're looking to stay in Detroit for a long time, for the long haul?
Yeah, for certain. I mean, again, I like to see things through because I know my impact, while it may be felt in the immediate sometimes, like I look for the greater gain in seeing the fruits of my labor really pay off. And, we'll get into leadership and other things. But I also, right, like this is about, I'm at the stage, 38 years old. I've seen it all. I've done a lot. It's the reward for me is seeing my direct reports flourish and seeing them thrive and ensuring that they're in a better position when they were 30 than I ever was, and hopefully they'll surpass me at a young age. So that's what I'm really focused on, the growing and seeing like the Kirkham farm system, who I'm putting in the pros and taking them to the
I
next
couldn't even
level.
ask for a better transition as a podcast host here. So talking about leadership, if you had to summarize your kind of leadership mantra and ethos in one line.
Well, my boss called it a servant leader in my review this year. I like to immerse myself and really understand what my staff is going through on a day-to-day basis. I want to be in the trenches with them, but know when to remove myself and give them the opportunity to flourish on their own. I want to listen. I want to know their personal life and what's going on with their family and how I can be of assistance. Mental health is real. So the fact that they know that my physical office is open, my virtual office is open, that's important to me. I'm of the belief that, you get the most out of people when you can lean in and really feel like they're part of it. And the work is the work. And I will never, ever discount the work, but it's about the personal bonds. We're in the trenches together 12, 16-hour days. If they have a boss that just delegates and it leads as if it's a totalitarian environment, it's not going to bode well for the output. And I think that's also important as you think about diversity of thought and making sure everybody has a chance to weigh in. Those are all things that I value and my staff would say as well.
I couldn't agree more, man. And anybody who's working underneath you, working for you, they're lucky there. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what are your thoughts on NFTs specifically in the sports world? I mean, hot or not? Is it a gamble? Is it a long-term play? Is this the future? What are your thoughts on NFTs?
I mean, it's definitely hot. And, as a marketer, you've got to be aware of the trends and, do your due diligence. So we've entered into the NFT space. The NBA sort of regulates what we can and can't
Big
do. But we've seen a positive response. And, if the market warrants it, you got to explore it. And I do think they're here to stay just based on the collectability. It's been really nice. I'm sure you can attest. You go back to your baseball, your basketball card collection from the 90s. Like that's how we collected, but it just shows you the
Technology,
evolution
man.
of collectibles. Yeah. And not to mention the tangible sort of baseball cards are on fire right
Everything
now.
old is new again.
Everything old is new.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
What would 38-year-old Tyrel go back and say to 21-year-old Tyrel? What advice would you give him?
Stop and appreciate moments. I think for the longest, I was that guy who was literally, I know it sounds cliche, but first in, last out. I'm talking, especially when I was grinding, working in the game use stuff, even in ticketing. I was there 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, leaving 10, 11 p.m. I was single, and I knew that I needed to put in the work. Not to say I would stop and take my foot off the gas, but like that's where I had to prove myself, to let everybody know, to build brand Tyrel. I needed to put in the work. And there's just some moments that I just let pass that I didn't celebrate and applaud myself for. And I would say, especially in my younger years, I was very scared to speak up. I'm very soft-spoken, and I used to just let things fly under the radar without speaking up. There were moments where I probably should have said something, or I had a great idea that I held back. And it wasn't until I got to Brooklyn where I had that freedom and people gave me, I was felt empowered to be able to speak up.
You mentioned Brett Yormick, who I don't know personally, but I've been following his career, and I know of him for a long time, being a strong mentor to you. But whether it's from Brett or anyone else, what's the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on every single day, Ty?
Oh, man, I've got a million Brett-isms, a million. But I'm going to go back to a quote that I say often, and it's from an old basketball coach, to be honest. It was, to have what you have not, you must do what you have not done. And that specifically goes back to learning how to make a left-handed layup. And at the time, I didn't really truly understand it in its full context, but he just said if you want to make a left-handed layup and stop jumping off your left foot, like, you got to practice it. You got to do what you have not done. And if you just keep going to your right, then that's what you're going to be subjected to for the rest of your life. And that mindset has stuck with me every step of the way. And I'd like to make myself uncomfortable, to do those things that I have not done, to ensure that I'm continuing to fine-tune my skills.
Anyone listening to this, I am nodding my head nonstop on this because I couldn't agree more. You have to growth comes from the discomfort. Growth comes from putting yourself out there, for trying something new. Otherwise, it's just going to be doing the same thing all the time. And last but not least, Tyrel, you look back on your career journey. You look back to those tough times. Losing your father at an early age, losing your mom more recently in life, and those times are tough. And you had to pull yourself up, and you had to stay strong. And you had to harness that inner tenacity to pull yourself forward. And throughout your career, all these steps, going into a new city, establishing yourself, that had to be uncomfortable. You had to figure it out. You had to make a name for yourself, but you still had to harness that tenacity to drive you. And you look back now, beautiful wife, family, success. You're building a legacy here in Detroit, man. What keeps you focused? Tyrel Kirkham, what is your North Star?
My North Star is just, again, the people that come after me, whether it's a child, whether it's younger family members. I got 2 nieces that look up to me, whether it's an employee on my staff. It's ensuring the work that I put in puts them in a better place when it's all said and done. And that is why I go. That is why I'm still driven. 17 years later, I've been in this business a long time. I value relationships, and hopefully the legacy that I'm building is a byproduct of all those people that came before me that wanted the same thing that I want for the people that are going to come after me. And that's my drive, and that's my why, and I won't stop until that's memorialized. And I will tell you this, recently we honored a lot of people during Black History Month this year, and one in particular was this guy, Terrence Wheeler, and Derek Coleman, the Derek Coleman. And Derek Coleman was speaking, and he talked about this dash, right? It's like when your tombstone, right? 1983 through whatever year. Maybe I lived to 2060. Who knows? But, like, when it's all said and done, what will that dash truly represent? And, it could be work milestones. And for me, it needs to be, work milestones are great. It's also what type of person, what type of human being was he? Like, did he care about his family? Did he love others? Did he treat them all fair and equal? Like, that dash, and whoever's reading my eulogy, if you're listening, like, that dash hopefully is well represented when the time comes.
Powerful words, my man. Thank you. This was good. This is what I mean. This is what this show is all about. This is what the podcast is all about. It's unpacking the career journey. And this had to be cathartic for you a little bit, right? Dude, it's like a therapy session here. That was, dude, I want to thank you. And I really hope everybody listening enjoyed it as much as Tyrel and I did having this conversation. So much gold in the mountains, man. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
And listen, first off, I want to thank you for having me. Podcast, best in the business. I've listened to other episodes. Phenomenal. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me probably private, but I promise I'll accept you. Tyrelevant on Twitter and Instagram.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Though. Everyone listening at home, you know where to find more at thepodcast.com. If you like this episode, if you love it, share it. Sharing means caring. It goes a long way. That's how we spread the word. That's how we spread the word of the podcast. Just great conversations with folks like Tyrel, and just sharing experiences, sharing learnings. That's what it's all about, and that's the beauty of the podcast. Thank you, Tyrel. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening at home. Remember, take care of each other, look out for one another, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.